As a final note before we begin, FCA is grateful to TechNet Augusta's premier supporting partner, Ultimate Knowledge Institute. We extend our thanks to UKI and all of this week's supporting partners. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Lieutenant General Susan Lawrence, United States Army retired, President and CEO, FCA International.
Well, as I always say, it's great to be back home in Augusta, Georgia. You're going to hear a lot of our theme songs this week, of course, from the great James Brown, home of from Augusta, Georgia. So again, I want to formally welcome you. We first came back here in 2013, so 11 years, another record-breaking year here as we come back again. We appreciate Augusta, sir, and the whole community when they support us and help us expand this annual event. Registration continues to grow. As of yesterday, we are above our number last year, so we expect this year to again be another record-breaking year. We're extremely grateful once again to have the participation of the United States Army Cyber Center of Excellence. Sir, congratulations on the command. Industry, as well as our academia partners here in the Augusta community. You guys always come out in groves, and we very much appreciate it. All of your input went into this agenda, and your willingness to participate and fulfill AFCEA's mission as the association of professionals in IT, cyber, intelligence, and global security communities who want to serve those who serve. Now I want to see how many of you were listening. What's AFCEA's booth number? 123, very good, very good. Thank you. Hope to see you there if you're not a member. I'd especially like to thank Major General Ryan Janovic, the Commanding General of the Army Cyber Center of Excellence, and his entire team that has been here to help us put this together. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Reggie Cook, Master Sergeant Keisha Lee, Christopher Salas, Rochelle Thomas, Demita Davis. Thank you very much for all your help. You've been with us since we got here late last week, and we appreciate everything that you all have done for us. And then AFCEA's Greater Augusta chapter is also a key part of the success of the conference, including our Regional Vice President, Bod Damon, Chapter President, Eric Gladman, Volunteer Coordinator, Amy Tushin. And we always recognize our past RVP, Pat Harrington, who is still volunteering and helping us find and recognize the opportunities to do the certification. So Pat, we always appreciate everything that you do. So if I could have all of the board members, volunteers, leaders from the AFCEA chapter who are in attendance today, please stand. They're all out there working. Where's Eric? I know Eric's here. Thank you. And any other AFCEA volunteers, leaders, I've seen many of you here from the different chapters across. Please join me in thanking these volunteers. They all have day jobs, but they do a tremendous job bringing our community together. So thank you very much. Thank you, Eric. Our theme for this conference is Transform, Align, Accelerate for Pacing Challenges. Couldn't be more timely with what we're reading in the news. This event is an opportunity to examine and explore the intricacies of the cyber domain with the assistance of the United States Army Cyber Center of Excellence and our industry partners who are with us today. Leaders and operators also will discuss procurement challenges that the military and industry are facing during this time. So we thank Mr. Youngbang for being here and leading these discussions as well. Thank you so much. And you know, it's a time of what we call uncertain budgets and runaway technologies. And so how do we stay ahead of that pace as we go forward? The need for cyber cooperation across departments and agencies, industries, and governments is greater than ever in an environment of persistent attacks and simultaneous sophisticated campaigns that threaten global, political, economical, and security interests. And if you watched the news this morning, our agencies now have proof that Iran is trying to influence our election system again. So not surprising, but it's what we have to deal with today. China is described as the pacing threat, meaning it is the only country that can threaten the United States economically, technologically, politically, and militarily. But Russia, North Korea, Iran, and others who pose a danger to our critical networks and infrastructure are among us. We have a lot to talk about this week, so thank you for what you have brought to this symposium. Before we officially begin the program, I want to recognize that an event like this cannot happen without you, without the support of industry. I always start by thanking you and I end by thanking you. We know it takes a lot of work to come in here, get set up, and do the things that you do and share the information that you share. As we say, finding solution to solve our most complex problems. We have over 250 exhibitors with us today, and I'm so excited to report thanks to Mayor Johnson for supporting us. We were able to shut down Reynolds Street, get that humongous environmentally controlled tent up there. That brought 70 new industry partners that weren't with us last year. So great, thank you, sir. And finally, I'd like to highlight an upcoming event. This will be our second time doing it. We're partnering with ASEA Europe and hosting TechNet Transatlantic 4 to 5 December. Please put it on the calendar. That theater has many, many challenges facing it. We need all of you with us over there, talking to the key leaders. We have a number of senior individuals who have agreed to do keynote speeches over there for us, great panels that we're going to talk about, and we're going to bring the C-Jet C2 in that discussion. And so please reach out and talk to me or Paul or Mike, and we'd be happy to get you any information you need to join us over there 4 to 5 December. So with that, I thank you very much, and let's get on with the program, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the singing of the national anthem by the White Tigers Ensemble from Richmond County Technical Career Magnet School, directed by Ms. Natasha Che.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner
Please take your seats and welcome to the stage Cyber Center of Excellence Chaplain Colonel William Lovell to provide the invocation for TechNet.
Love it. I invite you to pray in the manner of your tradition as I pray in the manner of mine. Let us pray. Eternal God, we acknowledge you as the giver of all wisdom and ask of you two things this week. Sharpen our critical thinking skills to meet the cybersecurity needs of today and give us creative minds to preempt the threats of tomorrow. I ask this for the welfare of our nation and the furtherance of your purposes here on earth. Amen.
Please welcome General Lawrence back to the stage.
Thank you, Chaplain Lovell, for blessing our event this week. You were schooled well by your brother there. Thank you. How about giving our singers, amazing singers, another round of applause? It has been our pleasure to bring TechNet Augusta here since 2013. We are grateful for the cooperation and support of the local community. And I now would like to invite Augusta's mayor, the Honorable Garnett Johnson, to the stage to give us a few remarks.
Well, good morning, TechNet Augusta. What a high honor and a distinct privilege it is for me to welcome you guys as the 85th mayor for this great city of Augusta, to the leadership of ASCIA, to all of our distinguished service members, to all of our guests. This city, born on the banks of this Savannah River in 1736, Georgia's second oldest behind Savannah, it is a great pride that I welcome you to now one of Augusta's largest conferences. You know, we categorize this city as 4 M's. The first M, of course, is the Masters. Everybody knows about that great golf tournament we have every April. Then there's manufacturing. You know, we're one of the largest producers of clean energy, with the introductions of Plant Vogel's units 3 and 4 that also sit along the Savannah River a little further south of us. And then there's medicine. The Medical College of Georgia was formed and founded in this community more than 200 years ago. And then there's the military. Fort Eisenhower. The reason why a lot of us are here is the foundation of this community of more than 200,000 in Richmond County. This region is called home to more than 700,000. And I say that because so many of our service members live not only in Augusta, Richmond County, but throughout this region. So on behalf of this, what we call CSRA, the Central Savannah River Area, we welcome you. We thank you for being here. We hope that you have a great conference, establish some great friendships, great partnerships, learn a lot. We'll see you next year. And again, to ASCIA, thank you so much for choosing Augusta. On behalf of my colleagues that serve with me on the Augusta-Richmond County Commission, thank you.
Well, good morning. My first comment was going to be our chaplain got walk-up music, and I was hoping I didn't, but the team in the back took that away. It's an honor to capstone the series of welcoming remarks for TechNet 2024 and arrive at this starting line together, which for something that promises to be great. And what makes it impactful? Here's what makes it impactful. General Lawrence, your opening comments frame very well what we mean when we talk about partnership with industry. Colliding the best our nation has to offer with our Army and our entire department as we look to solve complicated problems so that our fighting force remains unstoppable. Mayor Johnson, your presence alone, your comments in particular, reinforce what we mean when we talk about partnership with our communities, our schools, and our workforce. Thank you for being here with us today, sir. Thank you both for all you do to make this event a growing success. As mentioned, growing, expanding, and we look forward to seeing it continue to do so, focused on outcomes that none of us alone could accomplish. I echo your thanks to the teams, our teams who have worked behind the scenes, in the foreground, in the background, continue to work today. None of them are in the room to be thanked. They're all out there doing the hard work. And I want to echo that thanks. Our Army team, the professionals from throughout our Army and the Cyber Center of Excellence in Fort Eisenhower, are privileged to work with all of you to make TechNet a success each and every year and the best of breed. What opportunity has all that work created for us? Well, the opportunity is somewhat summarized in 298 industry partners in 137 exhibition booths with over or nearing 6,000 registrants, hopefully growing as we're speaking, ready to engage in dialogue. Capture the Flag events, AFCEA idea poster shows, professionals from every discipline and warfighting function in our Army, media interest, and a 10-year celebration of our cyber branch. And importantly, I offer 7 keynotes. These 7 keynotes and the scores of amplifying discussions, panels, and presentations will fill us all with a clear idea of what our Army is up to, where we are going, why we are moving with alacrity, and where we need the entire orchestra to offer solutions. You'll hear from senior leaders of our Army and our Joint Force. Generals Brito, Morrison, Skinner, and Barrett have graciously carved out time to talk about transformation in contact, unified network, C2 fix, and other very, very important topics to our Army. We welcome Generals John Cogbill, Mark Miles to help us understand the challenges faced by Corps commanders and theater commanders in the Pacific. General Pat Ellis and Mark Kitts will speak to us about the work happening in the network cross-functional team and where we are going with agile and adaptive command and control frameworks. These keynotes are designed to ensure that none of us leave here without full understanding of the transformation that it was already underway in contact. We must change the way we fight without stopping, unplugging, or waiting for perfect solutions in the out years. Together, all of us must move with an innovative spirit that will ensure our formations remain decisive and win on a battlefield that we can't perfectly predict, but yet we have a clear-eyed estimate on what it will demand. Our adversaries make the imperative clear. We're ingesting lessons from other forces in contact today and must apply these lessons to solutions in the near term while also outpacing towards solutions over the next intervisibility line. As I mentioned, these high notes, these keynotes, are important bookmarks over the next 3 days, but only if we all carry the discussions into other engagements. The Cyber Center of Excellence team, the Cyber Capability Development Integration Directorate, General Hodney's team from the Futures and Concepts Center, all will be engaged between these keynotes, engaged with you to ensure that we understand where we can go together to solve vexing matters in electronic warfare, man-packed solutions, reliable communications and data sharing at echelon, delivery of kinetic and non-kinetic long-range fires, interoperability within the joint force and with our partners. All of this must be done at a pace some may not be comfortable with. But yet we know the alternative. Hesitation and disunity will create and cede advantage to our pacing threat. So what's our charge then here? How are we going to spend our time? Simply, let's not leave TechNet until we've asked one another the best questions and committed to the right answers. The conditions are set. Mr. Mayor, you had 3 or 4 M's. I've got 3 A's this morning. AFCEA, Augusta, and our Army. Those are the conditions that we've set here for this conversation so that we can deliver to the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff of our Army, contribute to solutions of delivering fully realized material, organizational, doctrinal, and innovative adaptations to soldiers who will prove time and time again that they can adapt and they are lethal and they are not to be messed with. Let's begin. Here we are. We kick off TechNet 24 with an unparalleled voice in transformation, innovation, and solutions. Mr. Leo Garciga, the Army Chief Information Officer, and likely no stranger to many of you in the room, is our first keynote speaker and promises to set a tone for the remainder of our week. I'll defer any biographical information to the big voice after I'm done, but I assure you that the energy, commitment, and teamwork that Mr. Garciga exudes are well worth emulation. Let's absorb that energy. Let's get inspired by his direction and build on his inertia as we engage throughout the remainder of these 3 days. On behalf of the command team of the Cyber Center of Excellence in Fort Eisenhower, thank you all for being here and giving your energy to the outcomes for our Army. With your partnership, the fort will always remain the place where we forge and project a significant part of our Army's power. Thank you very much. Be all you can be.
All right. First off, mic check. Wow, that's a very loud mic check. Just take it down a little bit. It's been a year. It's been a year. So a year ago, I think I was like maybe 30 days in, I came up here and I said, we're going to break the bureaucracy. For those who've been around a minute, like I said, I am a prolific deliverer of policies, and that definitely is something that's been happening in many, many ways in the Army over the last year. So really excited about what's happened over the last year in this space, especially since I kind of came up here fresh, kind of coming out of Intel and a couple of interesting talks that I'd done at FCA. So thank you, FCA, for inviting me again. It's like 4 years in a row. That's a record right now for me. To come up here and be disruptive, a couple of things, right? Like, where are we in the story? So I got some slides. I don't know if they're up right now. One really important thing to think about. So last year, I think the feedback that I got from everyone was it is very clear that there is synchronization between the SIX, CIO, and our cyber across the board, right? It was very clear to everyone in the audience. I think anyone who's been working with us can say, yeah, that's a thing, right? A very different Army and very different approach to deliver capability and kind of to push where we're going as an Army. This year I can say, add that and then add ASALT, right? A whole different tone. And it's not me coming up here and saying it. Every service, right? And the folks at OSD, super jelly, right? They're all jealous. They're like, we cannot believe the relationship that you have inside the Army. Your ability to move, right, and to be synchronized across the board, whether it be on the acquisition side, or it be just on delivering the network, and even on the cybersecurity side and the threat side, right? Just a synchronized team working across the entire Army to deliver capabilities. I think that's a big thing. Definitely says a lot about the leadership that we have in place right now. And I'll say it's the one thing that's the feedback I get from everywhere I go, right? It's this thing of the Army moving so fast in so many places because we're so synced on getting to some objectives. I'm gonna be real quick on some stuff because I don't want to steal other folks' thunder. So UNO, it's real. Let's go to the next slide. It's real. I said this recently at an event, and I said, I am living the unified network, one of the few. And I can say, yeah, I've got 2 devices. That's all I have. My life is great. I have probably the best user experience in the Army. We're going to scale that over the next couple of years, so I'm excited about that. But it is real, and it's the number one question that I get is, hey, what are we doing in this space, and what does it really mean? So scene setter. So I thought this year, I'm like, what am I going to talk about? So every year I come up here, and I usually do here's what I learned over the last year. And for those who've been at some of these briefs, they're pretty funny, right? It's me kind of saying, these are the things I hear in my office. Like, no, you don't need an ATO for a commercial drone. I don't know why you're spending time on that, things like that. It always gets interesting. But this year, I kind of wanted to flip it a little bit. A lot of questions over the last year from industry, right? So we talk about where we're going. I don't think we do a good job sometimes of kind of setting the scene of where we actually are right now as an Army, right? So I think our industry partners and a lot of folks out in organizations start making interesting decisions on how they're going to support us, maybe not always based on current data. So I want to talk about where I think we are right now and just some trends that I'm seeing. So opposed to the usual thing where it's like people coming into my office and the shenanigans, it's going to be a little bit more strategic on what I'm seeing kind of across the force right now. So a couple of things. my favorite, right? So we've been on this cloud journey. Cloud journey's been very exciting in the Army, right? Run to the cloud. Lots of lessons learned. But we're in a different place today. When we started our cloud journey, and I'll say it's like maybe 5 years ago, we had something like 700 business systems out there, defense business systems. Like, it was huge, like a lot. We're down to 382. So think about what that means, right? These big core things that we were all moving to the cloud, just getting smaller, right? There's a lot less of them, so a lot less workloads out there. EBSC, big deal, right? Enterprise Business System Convergence, going to really reshape some of that, and that number is going to get even smaller. So I'd ask everyone to think about what that means, right, on how we support the Army. This kind of old school thing of like everybody spinning up their own business system, it's kind of dead. It really is, and the software directive really pushed us in a direction to kind of make that be dead, but really more about getting capability. So start thinking what that means, right, from a business perspective. This idea of organic capabilities and full stacks being deployed at commands. I don't know about you. So I got AMC here, I see Tradoc. We're watching them collapse that too, and it's been very organic, right? It's not like headquarters said, everybody stop doing this. I think just the fiscal reality and the reality of delivering capability at speed and scale has really forced MACOMs to relook at how capabilities were being delivered. So we're seeing that market really shrink, and shrink really, really fast. I think when I first got into this job, or I'll say when I first came to the Army, the amount of business systems and full stacks across the Army, it was kind of ridiculous. I'm not going to lie. It was a lot. But we're watching that shrink, and it's happening organically. Cloud onboarding, right? So last year I came up here and I said, we're going to fix the Army. We're still working it. It's in a much better place. I think, so we did what we set off to do, right? Rebuild the landing zone, C-Army 2.0, really focused on enabling capabilities, lessen the work that commands and PMs have to do, right? And scale down the time to onboard. So we're starting to see the first kind of real speed of that. And for the first time, we have programs that have kind of been off in their own little island coming to the table and saying, hey, wait a minute, you mean you guys can just provide that service and we don't have to do it ourselves? I'm all in, right? So I think we're starting to see that transformation in a quick way. And that's been a labor of love and a lot of work from a lot of folks at ECMA to get us to where we are today, right? And I will say, I say it in jest sometimes, but we did a Control-Alt-Delete on C-Army, right? We really did. We started from scratch in many ways, both on AWS and Azure, and we continue to mature that right now to get capability out the door. We hear about the unified network. I keep saying, right, like the trend going down, unique command networks. I shouldn't have to say more. We've been at this for a minute. I would say 4 years ago-ish, when I came into the Army, there was a lot of them. A lot of people said, we'll never be able to move the MI domain. It's pretty much moved, right? It's done, right? A lot of these org nets are getting collapsed right now and definitely moving at speed and scale to get that done. And great testament to Netcom and all the work that they're doing, right? They're crushing it right now when it comes to this, moving really, really fast. Definitely moving to friction in this space, but definitely delivering capability. We'll continue to see that come down. So that's kind of the trends going down, which is really interesting, right? It's this whole landscape of things that are kind of collapsing on themselves. But what's going up, which is really what's been interesting to watch over the last year. So a couple of things to think about. I don't know, 6 months ago, we put the memo out between ASALT and CIO, and we said, hey, these are analytic platforms in the Army. If you want to use them, I think I said this last TechNet, we're going to do this, well, we did it. If you want to use it, go to town. Build whatever you need to build in it. You don't need a new ITO. You don't need to do all this bureaucracy. Just move out. I was like, it's going to be a slow roll to get there. Absolutely not. We actually saw the opposite, right? The move to this environment and the low-code, no-code platforms that we have out there really surprised me. I thought it was going to be like, we'll see like 20%. It'll be interesting to watch. We'll kind of crawl in this space. That's not what we saw. What we saw is folks running to those platforms and delivering capability that they needed. We got a little help from the software directive, right, which puts some kind of new business rules in place. But I will say this, AMC, lot less systems, moving almost all the work where they would have historically built a system from scratch to these low-code, no-code platforms to do it. Really interesting space right now. And we're watching it happen organically. So I'm excited about that because that was our intent, right? We wanted to get kind of guidance out that let folks move at speed and scale, and we're definitely see that happening. Automation. So an interesting space. Lots happening in pockets everywhere. So obviously Netcom from delivering the network, we're seeing it, but ASALT, some of the other ACOMs, really embracing automation in a very different way, whether it's securing software, workflow management, right? Or just better employment and deployment of capabilities. We are seeing that move real fast. In fact, I would say faster than probably we can manage right now, and maybe we need a little governance around it. But we're watching that happen right now at speed and scale. The last two is going to be really interesting. So about 3 months ago, we put out some guidance on large language models and generative AI. It's been interesting to watch the fallout of that, right? Well, here's the Army's approach. But we didn't really talk about what we're really doing in that space. You know, what we're finding is real fast organic growth at the ACOMs with subject matter experts really moving out fast in this space. And when I mean fast, I mean folks who are really focused on their problems, shaping it, and getting some capability out the door. Still very much learning, a lot of work to do in this space. Where you're going to see more of that, and I'm going to talk about that in the slides here in a second. And the last piece is data accessibility. So Army Data Platform, right? We talk about where we are in the story. The number one thing that we see in the platform is folks leveraging the API to push to other tools, right? Whether it be other visualizations, workflow engines, other analytic engines to answer the mail for their questions. It's really interesting to watch. It's probably the fastest growth place we have. I mean, that's what the metrics show, right? Is that folks are really moving fast to have this ability to have a data integration platform available to get the data they need when they need it. All right, next slide, because I don't have a clicker. So what's next, right? So I'm going to talk today about a couple of things. So I think 30 days ago or 45 days ago, I said in public, I'm going to go to TechNet and we're going to talk about CATO. It's a real thing. We're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about large language models as a service and what we're doing in the Army right now in our crawl stage to understand this space and build the guardrails we need to build, right? Really important. Army 2.0 landing zone onboarding. For those who've been in the game for a minute here, we're definitely moving really fast on this. We're in the midst of a pretty powerful transition now from the old landing zone to the new landing zone. Please bear with us. We're getting a lot of great feedback. Folks are moving really fast. I'm really excited about where we're going in this space, and we're getting a lot of new services out there. Cloud Plan 2.0. We've learned a lot of lessons. Some we've relearned, right? We're in a very different place right now. So really focus now on getting a new cloud plan out the door to kind of let everybody know where we're going, right? Where we've made some adjustments, right? Whether it be adjusting rheostats on where we're prioritized or organizationally how we're going to deliver cloud. So more to follow on that over the next couple of months, but that's going to be a big push moving forward. The last one is RMF reform. A lot of work happening in this space. I think General Morrison and I have been back and forth talking about this for a couple of months. We did this big push, RMF 2.0. Folks are familiar with that. Learned some lessons. We're going to take those lessons and reshape where we're going. This also comes with really a push for CATO and some of the stuff that we've wrapped around software modernization, which has significant impacts, right, in this space. So more to follow on that. Big thing that we're going to focus on, though, or one of the biggest focuses, not so much on the process, right? So doing some work on the process, but this idea of what's the front door for risk management framework. Are we doing things we don't need to do? It's a great question to ask. The EMAS troll, that's me, says there's a lot of stuff in there and a lot of ATOs that I ask, why did you do that, right? And they're laughing up here because they know what I'm talking about. When I'm like, are you really going to spend $1.5 million to do paperwork? What are you ATOing? When the person who's putting in to get an ATO says, I don't know what I'm ATOing, probably shouldn't be doing it, right? So we're going to spend some time on making sure that we're very clear on entrance criteria. One, so you folks out here in the audience don't spend time doing it. And two, so we don't spend money doing it, which doesn't make any sense, which doesn't buy us any kind of security at all. All right, I'm going to the next slide because this is a kind of most important slide in this deck because everybody's asked me. So CATO, it's a real thing. We're doing it. We got 2 programs, PEO Soldier, PMNet Warrior. We've been working with them over the last 6 months. Very comfortable with where they are in the story. They will probably be the first, no joke, real Army CATO at scale with multiple kind of tenants. The other one's going to be a combination with RCyber and PMDCO, really Gabriel Nimbus, and big shout out to RCyber for really working this piece hard over the last 2.5, 3 years, right? I think that's really important. We didn't wake up last year and say we were going to do this, right? This has been, in many ways, about a 3-year effort, right, between some folks in the Army G2, some folks in CIO, some folks in G6, and some folks at RCyber to really lay the foundation to make this happen for the Army. So what does that mean? So a couple of things. And I'll challenge industry with one thing in this space. And I've said it a couple of times in public. By the way, only one company's come to me with a solution so far. And I've said, look, we got the go-go model, right? We know what that looks like. RCyber, killing it. We got the GoCo model. PMNet Warrior, killing it. We don't have the COCO model. And I've said, I think there's a space for that in the delivery of software. Don't know quite what that looks like, but I think we need to start thinking about what that means. Really easy for us to say, hey, we got tools, we're going to validate them, we're going to validate your platform, we're going to validate your CI/CD process. A lot different when I name your LSI, and say, by the way, I need my government people to see your logs for your pipeline. Yikes, right? People get a little nervous with that. I think there's a space for that. I think we're starting to see the demand signal in a couple of different areas where it just makes sense to deliver that way. So my challenge to everybody out there on the industry side is come to the table with a solution in this space, right? I don't think it's going to be every program we have in every project, but I definitely think there's projects out there that I look at, and I'm looking for it right now. I think we need a couple of test runs with some folks to really codify what that's going to look like. But that's my challenge that I set to you. So a couple of things are happening. So all of this right now, it's not like we just started drafting this. So this is inside the Army's bureaucracy. We've got one, shocking. It's in the final stages. We're like about 2 weeks out from it being somewhere near my desk for signing. So a couple of things so I can kind of explain what we're doing here as an Army, because I think it's really important in this space. So the first thing is this idea of got to certify your DSO pipeline. And what does that mean? You know, 3 years ago, we said we're going to centralize all this and deliver it for the Army, right? So everyone's going to do software. It's going to be all centralized. One organization's going to run it. Bad idea. That was a terrible idea, right? We black boxed how we were going to deliver software. We learned from that. So our approach is a little different right now. And what we've said is, hey, There's Army services, there's Air Force services, there's services around the entire department. Leverage what works, that's already accredited, that people are managing and maintaining it. And it's up to programs and ACOMs to daisy chain that together. So it's interesting on why I say that. There's a level of maturity you need to do that. So we talk about the software directive we issued, right? Which basically changes the dynamics of who's building software. And frankly, probably shouldn't be building a lot of software at an ACOM, like from scratch, right? Like straight up create software. Definitely at the PMs, but the PMs have the skill set, have the people on the team, are already moving forward in that space, right? Can kind of daisy chain these things together. So we've said, hey, that's the core customer, right? The core customer is not like some tactical level customer. We make money as an Army and with our industry partners on delivering capability fast using Agile and DSO when we're doing it in $100 million a year programs, right? The $40,000 a year birthday app at Name Your ACOM doesn't save the Army money. LMP saves the Army money. IPS saves the Army money, gets capability out faster. So our big focus has been on how do we lay this out to make sure that those capabilities are moving as fast as they can. So this first piece on that is going to be critical. Really short, really condensed, gives a lot of freedom to the commands and to the PEOs. The next piece is this pipeline certification. So yeah, there's stuff out there, it's accredited, we know it works. This is going to be a little different. So it's not going to be a checklist, right? This is something that we've been talking about for a while, is how do we actually validate this? So I think everybody else's approach to this has been, we're going to do a checklist and we're going to check this box and we're going to make sure, we're going to grade your homework on some rubric. We're taking a very different approach in this space. We've kind of said that we're going to do a maturity assessment for this. So lay out a framework. These are the basic things you need to get a pipeline certified for CI/CD that you can go straight to production. And we're going to assess your maturity. What does that mean? It doesn't mean technology. It's all about TTP, right? Do you have the right folks who can adjust the rheostats on some of these software tools to go to production? It's a really important question. And I'll give you the perfect example because somebody came to me the other day, a program at EIS, and I said, sir, we got this. We got a DSO pipeline. We can go to production. We just need your help. I said, great. I will play your game. I'm sitting in the room and I'm like, interesting. Where are your cybersecurity folks? Well, they're not here. Okay. How are they integrated into how you deliver? Well, they're not. I said, great. Your maturity score is a 1 out of 5, which means you are nowhere near ready to do CATO and to do DSO to production. And this is really important. We thought about this really hard as we talked with the community on this. We didn't want to do a checklist because we wanted to have a mechanism as we walk through these programs to say, hey, you kind of got a C- right now, but if you do these 3 things, you can get a B+, which gets you this much closer. So it really is a way to kind of, from a policy perspective, have a framework to assess maturity, give a score, right? Which is important, right? We want to know where we are in the story, but also allow for a path to move forward. And then the last piece is, if you do those 2 things and you got a real release management approach, very few programs. Then you get to CATO, right? And what does that really mean? So I don't want to confuse it with continuous monitoring because there's some weird confusion out there on this. This is really simple. You have an initial ATO. Go as fast as you can and deliver software, right? Don't need to redo it. Don't need to have a secondary ATO. This is really about, can we deliver directly to production? So for those folks who are building software for the Army, real world, commit straight to prod, right? So real deal. So we're comfortable with what we're seeing right now. And again, 2 pilot programs, super excited. I'll open it up for questions after that so we can talk about it, because I think that's where there's a lot of questions right now. Hopefully next 30 days you'll see that published. And definitely looking for feedback, right? Probably an 80% solution, right? I'm gonna admit it, we probably don't have 100%. Still some challenges on how does this look for hardware in the loop, right? Really important question. If we want to move fast on putting new tables into HIMARS, it's a little different than if we're delivering a web app, right? So I think we need some help on kind of rethinking what that looks like in the model. All right, next slide. So I'm going to be real quick here because I want to get to questions. So a couple of observations. So we put Gen AI guidance, a lot of work with ASALT and our team on kind of together thinking through some of the challenges in this space. Definitely focused on protecting data, wanted to open up the space for commanders to move out, but do it in as safe a way as we can possibly do it. Couple of lessons learned. So number one, wide swath of things happening in this space. I don't know, I don't see General Stanton out here, but he's like myself, he always asks the first question is, do you actually have a problem to solve? So I think what we're finding right now, lots of folks are like, we're gonna go do this. And we're like, great, what problem are you solving? Then we're like, well, that's a workflow problem, so you don't need a large language model to do that. Don't spend the time or effort, right? So definitely spending a lot of time on the front end trying to help commands triage that, some of the work in this space. Really condensed down to like 9 focus areas, some interesting. So soldier well-being, that's a pretty critical one right now. A lot of work in that space. Definitely aviation safety, like things that just make sense to use large language models for, right? Where you have subject matter expertise. We've been really, really focused though on a couple of things. This idea of as a service in this space is going to become really, really important. What we found is when we've opened up the capability, right, the novices will go in and blow their entire budget very quickly, right, because they don't understand. Folks who are not subject matter experts in the space will spend a lot of time to get to an answer. Some of that is experience, some of that is where these models are, and a lot of time retraining. I used this example recently because it's the one that made me kind of chuckle a little bit when Dan Jensen at Army Analytics Group came back to me and told me, right? So the aviation safety folks said, hey, we want to do this aviation safety stuff. So they pull everything from OpenAI, and we learned a couple of lessons. Number one, NASA has the best aviation safety program in the world, because that's the only thing that ever came back. We did find that out very quickly. So we spent a lot of time retraining that model against our problem sets. So that's where we're seeing a lot of time being spent. And I say this, right, as our cautionary tale of not running to technology we don't understand and really focusing on what question are we trying to answer and problem are we trying to solve, and do we have the subject matter expertise to get after that? So we're spending a lot of time. Why? Right? The why is important because we can't afford not to. Right? I think the number one thing we found is there's a certain amount of discipline that's needed in this space. And we're definitely working on what does the cost model look like? And across a pretty wide swath, right? Some stuff with LSI, some stuff cloud native. We've partnered up with some small businesses in this space also to kind of get a good kind of lay of the land of how we start operationalizing some of these technologies. And I'm really focused on large language models right now because everybody in here is going to tell me how they're hooked into GPT and everything else. I got it. But work to be done. Lots of work. Couple of things, just kind of what we're really finding. And our observations have been conversational AI, definitely a thing, right? Like that's where we're seeing a lot of folks kind of work through. So when we talk about like, and this will make sense to folks in big companies too, right? Like back office stuff. The Army has a lot of tasks. If you see our tasking system, it's ridiculous. It's a lot. How do we better, right, search, go through those tasks, It's the 50th time we've asked the same question to go back to Congress on a capability. It would be nice if we could just get some lift to get there faster, right, and reduce that cognitive burden. A lot of work in that space. A lot of work in the mission space on the cyber side in this area too, but we're seeing mostly back office. And the AI assistant piece has been really, really interesting, right? So this idea of much smaller models and integrating them together, spending a lot of time in that space right now. One, to kind of get a good lay of the land, right? Where do these things make sense? And also to think through this idea of, are there specific Army models we have to worry about? Especially for the back office stuff, right? We've got our own culture, we've got our own way of doing business. How do we kind of shape that? But I'm super excited in this space right now, because really industry has come to the table in a very good way with lots of lessons learned. And everybody's kind of been pragmatic, like, yeah, here's where we are in the story, right? This isn't a 100% solution. Maybe this gives you some lift. I think this next stage is how do we make it available more broadly? We've got about 200 folks against a bunch of different capabilities right now in the cloud on some of these 9 use cases. More to follow. Definitely an area that's growing, and I would ask that take the lessons learned that you're seeing in the industry and bring them back. I'll give a couple of shout outs though in this space. I was really, really surprised on who's making strides here. At first I was like, well, it's probably gonna be the PEOs, we're gonna have like big programs doing this. No, no. They're working through the friction of where it makes sense, right, on some of these programs. AMC, lots of work on the logistics side, right? Lots of work at Army Contracting Command, all organic. They didn't go out and buy a bazillion data engineers, data scientists, right? They're leveraging capabilities out of the box, and they're just starting to ask questions, right? So it's been really interesting to watch and training their workforce on how to build these models. So just wrap your head around what that means for the Army moving forward, right? Lots of low-code, no-code platforms, and now we're bringing some more capability out in this space. Same thing at TradeDoc, right? Really impressed with folks from the cyber COE and CAC saying like, hey, we should probably like ingest all our POIs. Like, it's not a bad idea. And all our doctrine, right? To crosswalk that. Number one use case in the Army, which is the one that makes me chuckle every day, because I have to deal with these folks, OTJAC. So I will tell you, the attorneys are really good at using this stuff, right? And it has cut down our time to get policy out and to move through the bureaucracy of the department, right? Because they've been able to use LLMs to triage law. So that's been interesting. So definitely a burgeoning space. And again, our focus, building guardrails, what does the as-a-service model look like, and what's the cost model, right? Because we've got a lot of bad examples right now, so we're trying to get to a good place. All right, next slide. All right. I said a lot. I wanted to focus on those two areas because pretty much we're going to talk about the unified network, we're going to talk about Fix, and we're going to talk about Pivot. I really wanted to focus on these kind of new and emerging areas where we're going to see a lot of policy work over the next couple of months, and where we're really asking for help. And again, I'll say what I said the first time I was on this stage as the Army CIO, and what I continue to reiterate to everyone. We're at the headquarters. We don't know every problem. We can't see every piece of friction from a policy perspective or a TTP perspective. We're hyper-dependent on the audience, right? Telling us, hey, this is a challenge and here's why. And coming back to the table and saying, and here's some ways that you can do it different, right? So I continue to challenge everyone. And I know uniformed folks heard this yesterday from me. And a couple of folks in the audience, they've tested this, right? If you write it, I'll sign it. It's a real thing, right? It's been tested by a couple of folks. EXO's back there laughing because, as he says, I'm the Army's greatest action officer because people send it right to me. Please send it to my staff. I love being squad leader Garciga, but I got a lot of work to do. All right, I'm going to open it up to questions.
Sir, the first question for you is, how is the Army trying to bring in commercial, non-traditional software vendors? Is it embracing commercial models like software as a service and firm fixed price?
Oh, wow. I know who asked that question. Yeah, look, so I've kind of been very clear on where I'm at from a headspace perspective on some of this. One, on the software as a service piece, we're in a different place than we were 4 or 5 years ago. I have been a big proponent of kind of the model for cloud, right? Kind of looks like this, in this exact order. SaaS first, if you can. That's number one. Like, just do it. PaaS, if we have to. And for God's sakes, if you're going to do IaaS, why are you going to the cloud? You might as well deploy on-prem. Like, I'm just going to be real. Like, we've seen that is the real life kind of situation we're in right now. So how do we start looking at cloud like that? Big supporter of the SaaS model. We've been having a lot of conversations with ASALT on this. A lot of work to do. We put some policy and some guidance out recently on this, right? Different way of doing cybersecurity, different way of integrating on how we defend those capabilities. But I'm still in the same place I've been. Similar to the software piece, and I'm not going to talk about software modernization directive. I'll let Jen talk about that. But it's also this idea of ABC, right? So adopt, buy, create. The last thing you should ever do is create. Like, if you're doing create, you better have a damn good reason to do it, because we are terrible at it. Terrible, right? We just are. The adopt and buy is really where we try to focus. So I think those two together, and as we move to a philosophy that looks more like that, I think lends itself to better contract mechanisms to get that done. And look, I fundamentally understand that the business model is different for the non-traditionals, i.e., yeah, we didn't have a DARPA or IARPA or the DoD invest $1 bazillion to spin up a company, right, which now is commercial, right? So that's sunk cost for the department, right? What's the model look like for these smaller companies that have been backed by VCs, right, and their business model is just fundamentally different? I'll give a shout out to ASALT. They're trying to work through this right now. I think the Digital Center of Excellence and what they're doing on the contracting side, how do we add flexibility to bring everybody into the game in a smart way, right? Whether it be non-traditionals, right, or medium or large LSIs, how do we give everyone a fair shot to do that with an understanding that there's different models? And I think that the team up at APG has done a really good job of adding that flexibility, right? There's some complexity to it, I acknowledge that, but adding the flexibility we need to get those services in a smarter way. So that's how I would answer that question. What else we got? One reciprocity.
The next question for you is, with the Army's move to reduce, collapse, and consolidate, what work are you doing to ensure the U.S. maintains an industrial capability to scale during time of conflict?
Well, I won't answer that question for ASALT. But I will say this. I think we talk about consolidation, and there's this kind of false perception that means there'll be less players in the game. I don't think we're seeing that, right? To the contrary, I think kind of what's happened with centralization and delivery of services is we've been able to really find these gaps that are out there, and we're actually enabling, especially more and more of the niche capabilities, to come to bear inside of our enterprise. So without getting into the hardware piece of this, what I'd say is from a software perspective and what we're seeing at the enterprise level is that consolidation, if anything, has given us considerable more clarity on where we have gaps in requirements, which is making us really be able to go out there and go after some of the other capabilities that are out in the space right now. So I in no way want to make it sound that consolidation and a lot of the stuff we're doing right now is definitely lowering the pool of players in the game. Honestly, I don't think the metrics support that. I think we're actually going in a much different direction. And we're actually opening up the aperture to a lot more folks and really opening up the aperture to non-traditionals. So I think we'll continue to see that piece right there. I won't get into the hardware piece and what we're doing for the DIB. I think that's much better answered by ASALT on what they're doing at an enterprise level across the defense industrial base. But yes, we still need to build Virginia-class submarines, right? so that's a thing. I think we have a lot of things that are in that same space in the Army too.
All right, thank you, sir. The next question is reciprocity across organizations has been oftentimes challenging. Does the Army have a policy on reciprocity, and are you seeing interest in adoption of Army's approach to CDSO across Navy, Air Force, and other organizations?
Yes, on reciprocity, we have one. We beat the department to it. Just to point it out, we issued it first. There's a lot of copy and paste in the department's policy, by the way. I see you, Mark, I'm watching you. And we will take credit for that. So we've had the reciprocity policy, I don't know, like 8 months now, something like that. Really interesting to watch. Just had a really good question on this yesterday. But yeah, we are seeing folks use it, definitely. I will give the one little anecdote, and I had the chance to talk to DevSecOps about this. There was some questions early in the year on Project Convergence, right? Some challenges with ATOs. None of them were Army problems, which is crazy. I think we had 183 ATOs were issued with reciprocity, period. That's how it was done. So when we ask, are people using it? Yes. Prolifically, that's a different problem. And at Echelon, different problem. We got a lot of work to do in this space. But we're definitely seeing folks use it, and it's making life a lot easier. What we really found, which was interesting, as we put the reciprocity policy out, is we had a very major gap in the Army on type accreditations, right? So where PMs were delivering kit that could be deployed on one-to-end tactical or enterprise networks, we were seeing some challenges there. So that's where we're really focusing some effort right now to clean the battle space on that. But yes, we're definitely seeing on the reciprocity side. On the DSO side, really interesting. Hence, I had a slide up there that says, if you do these things, yes. So good partnership with the Air Force, right, in this space. So we're leveraging both the combination of Air Force accredited capabilities. So look at it as we gave it reciprocity and Army capability for some of the stuff we're doing on the defensive cyber side, which has been really interesting. But I'm definitely seeing folks use it. Our bigger challenge is the next piece, which is like culturally getting everybody moving in the same direction in this space at Echelon. And that's going to be the next piece. But my sense right now and everything I've seen, and yes, greatest action officer, right? I have to weigh in on some of these, just use reciprocity for that. But we definitely are seeing that move faster in the Army right now. I hope that answers the question to whoever asked that.
Thank you, sir. We have one more last question for you. What is the Army doing to ensure cyber workforce retention and proficiency?
Cyber COE can talk about this at length when it comes to uniform folks. So really interesting, right? So as we look at 8140 kind of getting laid out and the sunset of the old policy, spending a lot of time and effort right now on rethinking, right, the civilian workforce and how we manage that. Very comfortable with where we are on the uniform side of the house. Lots of great efforts are happening in that space across the board. Internships, right? Definitely scholarships. Civilian side, a lot of work to do still, right? What does that look like? And part of this really, and I keep saying this because it's like everybody wants this massive program in this space. But more and more what we're finding is that there's things already in place. Our challenge continues to be that our workforce doesn't know that they exist. And I'll use the example because we put something out the other day for some folks who wanted to do the cyber scholarship piece. Folks didn't know that existed. And I had to lay out like, hey, there's like all these programs right now, DOD and Army. So we got to do a better job. And what we're working right now with MNRA is how do we get that message out in a much tighter way across the force to make sure, one, that folks use the capabilities that are already in place. You would be surprised. And we got a lot of senior leaders here who review packages for some of these programs. I will tell you the last, I think the Harvard class packages that I saw, of 15 slots, there was only 4 applications, right? So that kind of shows our gap right there. We didn't even have people apply because they didn't know. So we're going to focus on first, like, make sure everybody knows what's going on right there. And then the next piece is going to be, right, like the goodness of 8140, which I'm excited about, is, right, it relieves us of this crazy kind of approach where it's like, go get your certs. And I'm like, oh, whatever, right? That's great. Doesn't say anything, doesn't mean anything really. Like, I'm going to be honest. It's been an interesting niche industry that we've built around that. But is it delivering effect? That's a tougher thing to talk about. And I think for those of us who've been around a while and watched and have been part of DCO or the OCO fight, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of soldiers and civilians out there who have that many certs. And they're some of our best people, right? So we're excited about where this is going, where it's going to give some freedom, and it's going to relax these kind of draconian approaches to, like, because you did this, you're good, to really get the right training and capabilities out to folks. So we're excited about it. It's a tough space, right? We talk about competing with industry. I kind of don't see it that way anymore right now. I think what we're seeing is folks who are in the fight, they want to stay. They want to continue the fight. Our big thing is, how do we build the right kind of pipeline to get them the training that they need moving forward? And again, this is outside of the schoolhouse and kind of the initial tranche. So lots of work to happen. We're going to put guidance out here shortly. I'm going to say next 60 days. I'm being very conservative with that number. On 8140 implementation across the Army, right, and where we are on the next tranche of that. I think Mark's going to talk about some of the stuff that the department is doing in this space, which is going to add a lot more clarity to the training piece. But we got some work to do, right? The good thing is, like I said, we're in a different space now, right? Like, got a different model, makes a lot more sense. It's going to be a lot more tailored to really get capability out the door. Okay, I think I'm out of time because I don't have any more questions. I appreciate everyone listening to me. If there's anything you take away from this is we continue to march, right, on what we started about a year ago. Unified network, right? Huge. It's real. You can come see my laptop and my phone, right? Breaking the bureaucracy of the Army, right? That's also very, very real. I think, I don't know, Ben, 42 policies or guidance memos. It's a lot, so many, right? But really kind of rethinking the way that we do the business of running the network and securing the network and get that out the door. We will continue to march down that path, right? Secretary's guidance to me is, do not let the bureaucracy stop capability from getting to the warfighter. Pretty simple mandate, right? If you want to know where the policies are, because I know only the press trolls this site, I have found that out over the last couple of weeks. Army Publishing Directorate, they're all posted there. So you're more than welcome to read them. And again, right, like, leverage that stuff. If you see something on there, if it doesn't make sense, right, if we kind of tweaked it the wrong way, give us the feedback, right? Like, we're really good at changing them. We've got at least one where we've changed it like 4 times, I think, since we issued it, right, from feedback. And my philosophy remains the same. I'll get an 80% solution out the door so we can move out, right? And then we'll tweak it as we go. All right, awesome. Thanks for listening to my shenanigans today. I'm glad I was invited back, so thank you, FCF, for having me here. Really excited about the rest of the stuff you're going to see over the week here. And again, keep a keen eye on this synchronization between CIO, G6, ASALT, and R-Cyber, right? And tell all your friends in the other services they should do it, because it's really making the Army move fast. All right, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time today. I will get off stage.
Thank you, sir. Please welcome General Lawrence back to the stage.
All right, no, sir. Oh, no, So, again, I just want to take a moment to thank you, sir, as always, for coming back here and speaking with us. We very much appreciate it. And on behalf of the Fort Eisenhower Historical Museum, in lieu of a gift, we're going to donate in your name a donation to them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks again
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, we're going to take a small break here. We brought back from the Cyber Center across the street our ASALT team. We've got a great lineup there of events that we're going to do. So to get all this in, we're going to have to move out quickly. So we're going to take a 15-minute break here and get our ASALT team up here. So thank you very much for being here.